What's going on, everybody? This is the Undefeated by Choice podcast brought to you by Steelfist Fight. We are just about 2 weeks away from our next card, the Rectify card. Let's say last time I went over the Cole Schaefer-Nick Martinez fight, which I'm still super stoked about. I think that's going to be a great fight. I think both of them got good ground game. And so we're just going to see a stand-up war, which, you know, that's what everyone wants to watch. That's what we show up, right? Every fight starts standing for a reason. So, you know, I'm going to have them both on the podcast coming up sometime next week. Well, I'll have one of them at the end of this week, and the video will come out next week, and then the other one I'll have next week. So I'm going to have both of them. Like I said, I want to start doing more of these, talking about more of just kind of the mainstream MMA, primarily UFC stuff. But if there's some other stuff that come up, like Bellator or anything like that, stuff that I can break down, talk about, I'll start doing. And then at the end, of course, I'm going to talk about two more fighters coming up on the Rectify card that I'm really excited about. But I was looking at this card, this UFC card, and this was the first time I actually sat down and looked at the card. I knew John was fighting on it, and I knew that Valentina was fighting on it, and I'm getting the pay-per-view. I'm paying for the pay-per-view, so I was just wondering like what the pre-card looked like and the prelims and the early prelims. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of pissed. I'm kind of upset. I remember the days when the UFC was like, me and my friends would get together. We'd like make an evening out of it. We would, buy, a bunch of pizza. We'd all get a bunch of hamburgers or whatever. We'd stop somewhere and bring all our food back to the place. And we would we'd go all out for it. We'd make a night out of it. We wouldn't plan dates that night. Like we were all in. It was once a month, and we would really enjoy the cards. And the cards were always like, you could get balls deep on these cards. Like you could spend all week watching the countdown, watching interviews, watching, all sorts of stuff. And I would show up. I was one of the ones that was like, I was into it. I knew everything about every fighter on the card. I was dialed in. And it was all because the UFC was promoting it. They were promoting every single fighter on the card, or at least the main card. And they were making you want to watch. They were making you not want to miss. And I just feel like, since they've become as big as they are, with the ESPN deal, the Reebok deal, it's just, they have done less and less and less promotion for these fights. And and not only that, so at first they started to do that. Started to do less promotions, and they really just were like, promoting the man whose name must not be spoken in my den. And they were, they kind of went to that model where they're like, we got these superstars. John was on that for a while. Ronda was on that. Of course, the Irishman was on that. Kind of was the forefather of that. And then I feel like there was a couple others that they were like, okay, we're going to put our money into this person. They started, they went, and then they tried to go young. They're like, oh, we got these young fighters. So they started to put in like Sage Northcutt. That didn't work out. A little bit they were doing that with Mickey Gall. That didn't really work out. Paige Van Zant was another one. These young ones that they're like, we're going to put our money into these young people. And that didn't really work out either. So now they're like, well, we're just going to do super cards and just put on a bunch of other, just random cards. So it's like, even when they were kind of going away from the model of promoting every single fight, they still were putting together really good fight cards. But they just don't do that anymore. Like, I'm looking at this fight card right now, and I'm just like, so the first fight on the main card is Derek Lewis and Ilir Latifi. Latifi is a 205er coming up to heavyweight, and he's fighting one of the biggest guys in the division, knockout artist, Derek Lewis. And like, I was supposed to get excited for that fight, a 205er versus a knockout artist at heavyweight. And like, what? I'm supposed to be excited over that fight. I'm supposed to be like, oh, I'm going to put my $60 down to watch that fight. I know they're putting Derek Lewis on the card because he's a hometown boy from Houston. Maybe no one else wanted to fight him, but that's the first fight of the main card. Then you have Dan Ige, or Ige, sorry, Ige, Dan Ige, versus Mirsad Bektek. Never heard of Mirsad Bektek. I'm sure he's a great fighter. And then the fight right before the co-main event is Juan Adams and Justin Tafa, two fighters who are on a losing, who have just lost their last fights. Juan Adams on a 2-fight losing streak. I don't know about Justin, but they both just lost their last fights, and they're on the fight right before the main event, or right before the co-main event. Like, those are not. That's not where that fight belongs. But they're two heavyweights, so they're going to throw them on there. Like, what is this? What is that? And so then the problem that they have is they have Valentina Shevchenko and Jon Jones, who are probably the most dominant champions in their divisions, or in the UFC, the two most dominant champions. I mean, you could argue Amanda Nunes also, but her last fight with Jermaine Durandamy, wasn't that dominant of a performance. And up until she became champ, a lot of her fights were close. A lot of her fights went to decision. So, let me backtrack. Amanda Nunes is the greatest of all time. Like, she's a dominant champion. So I'm going to backtrack everything the point I was trying to make about Amanda Nunes doesn't count. But like, Henry Cejudo is becoming a dominant champion, but I don't think he's had enough title defenses to really be like considered like on the Jon Jones Valentina level. But he's getting there. He's definitely getting there. Then you have like the heavyweight division that belt's bounced around 100 times. The 170 belt has bounced around. So like, but in the two most dominant champions are Jon Jones and Valentina Shevchenko. So I like that they put them on the same card because it's really hard to sell a fight for either of them because they're so dominant, and it's like the people they're going to put them up against are just lambs to the slaughter. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, Dominic Reyes has a chance. Jon Jones needs to take him serious. Yeah, he needs to take him serious because he hits hard and can knock him out. But as I said on the last time, Jon Jones, that's not really what we're concerned about. He's fought this type of fighter before. He's seen this before. It's happened before. It's not anything that, it's not anything new. I already went into that in depth. And then you have Caitlin Chookagian. Now, I like Caitlin a lot. I like her personality. I like how she fights. I like everything about her. I think she'd be a great champion. I just don't think she's going to beat Valentina. Valentina is just leaps and bounds above everybody else right now. And unless there's a game plan that I just can't see, or unless Valentina has the worst night of her life, or Caitlin just was hiding all of her talent up until this point, I just do not see. I don't see her winning this fight. I was looking at their statistics, and Caitlin throws, on paper she throws more offensive strikes than Valentina. The problem is she throws more, but she's not as accurate. Valentina's accuracy in landing her punches, which means she's much more calculated, much more precise in her punches, or any of her striking, is dangerous for Caitlin, because Caitlin's game plan is to walk forward and throw a lot of volume. Valentina's game plan is to counter, always. And so that's dangerous. You're playing right into her game plan. You're doing exactly what she wants you to do. She wants you to walk forward. She wants you to throw punches so that she can counter them. So that does not speak well for Caitlin. So I was like thinking, what are other ways? Because I said Dominic's only chance is to come in, blitz Jon, put a lot of pressure on him, and give us something we haven't seen before. Give us a fight we've never seen before with Jon. Because if he goes into the regular style of fighting Jon, he's going to lose. If he puts the pressure on, and I think blitz him, but if he doesn't blitz him, fine. But you got to pressure him. You cannot let him dictate the pace and the distance. I already went over all of that in the last video. I'm just repeating myself. But I was like, what can Caitlin do? What can Caitlin do? Well, obviously striking is out of the question. That's just It's just not a good idea to try to strike with Valentina. And even on like the 24/7 or the countdown, they did a countdown for this one, which I was surprised because I'm surprised they put any money into it. It doesn't feel like they're putting a lot of money into it, but they did do a countdown for it. And when they did the countdown, they were trying to sell it that's like power versus speed and precision. So that's a pretty awful narrative to try to sell me on because, yeah, Caitlin's probably more powerful, but you have to remember Valentina fought Amanda Nunes twice in a weight class that wasn't her own. She went up in weight to fight Amanda Nunes. They fought twice and went to decision. Amanda Nunes is the most powerful woman on the planet. And Valentina went toe-to-toe with her for 10 rounds. One of them might have been a 3-round fight, but still, she went the distance in both fights and lost in a decision. So to try to tell me that Caitlin has the power to put Valentina out, I don't believe it. It has not been proven that Valentina can get put away by power. She's fought the hardest woman in the world, the toughest woman in the world, and went the distance with her. So in a weight class that wasn't hers, she went up in weight, 10 pounds heavier. Amanda's 10 pounds heavier. Well, I mean, you know how that works. So that's trying to sell me on that's not the way to go. So then I started trying to look and see what she's got as far as ground game. And at first, I saw right away that she trains with John Danaher, and I was like, oh, sweet. Well, that's good. That's a good thing right there. But then I was like, we all know John Danaher trained GSP. But other than that, I really couldn't find or remember anybody else really that's like a dominant fighter that is really just proficient on the ground, that's dominant on the ground. Like, I was trying to think of another fighter that he trains that has those qualities, and I couldn't find any. I couldn't think of any. And if I'm wrong, like if I'm speaking out of turn, please correct me. Like, let me know who else he coaches and trains that's this dominant ground guy or woman that that's throwing leg locks on everybody. I know that in the jiu-jitsu world he's got some killers, but in the MMA world I can't think of any. So I don't know if his style doesn't really translate to MMA or if I don't know what it is. Obviously, the man is a savant. The man is one of the smartest men I've ever seen. When I was listening to him on the Joe Rogan podcast, I was hypnotized. He is so smart. But that doesn't always translate into good coaching. That doesn't always translate into, champions. And I could be wrong. Please, if I'm wrong, let me know. I want to be corrected. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I just couldn't think of anybody. So I was like, well, and then I remember, and Valentina's no slouch on the ground either. Remember that armbar that she locked on to Jessica Eye was deep, and I thought she was going to finish the fight there. Jessica's a beast and got out of it and, continued to fight until we all know what happened there. But, I just was like, what does Caitlin have to offer? Where can she win this fight? And unlike Dominic, I'm saying Dominic can win the fight if he does this. I'm not seeing that with Caitlin. I just do not see a way without it just being a lucky punch. Or even, not a lucky punch that like knocks her out clean, but, a few lucky punches that stumble her and get her dazed, and then you can capitalize, get a TKO or something like that. But without, some luck, some straight up luck, I just don't see it. I think it's funny. We always have to cover our bases. Like, well, I mean, anybody could win. It is a fight. Anybody, and we all know that. And I don't know why. We always feel like we have to cover our bases. We all know that. I could be wrong. Caitlin could go in and just throw volume and just land a bunch and put her away. I'm just not seeing it. I'm not buying that. That's what it is, and that's what the plan is. So, I think it's good that they put her and John on the same card because it's hard to sell these dominant champions. What I'm pissed off about is John is carrying this. Every time I watch anything. I'm trying to study. I'm trying to get into it like I used to and care about it just as much as I used to. So I'm trying to watch every interview I can, trying to listen to every outlet I can, every reporter I can. And it's all John. It's all John. And part of that is because Dominic really is all over the place with what he's saying. He's at one point he's saying like, oh, I watched John's fights, but I didn't really study John's fights. I was studying whoever I was, coming up with next. And then another outlet, he's like, oh, I've been studying John since day one. I have been studying his weaknesses. I know how to watch game film. I know how to break a fighter down. And you're saying that when you're going up against Jackson Wink, the greatest game planners and film studiers of all time. You think you found something in John that they haven't been able to see and work on? Like, come on, bro. What are you talking about? So Dominic he's not the guy. And so maybe they're not letting him on the camera or the microphone because he's not saying anything. He's not saying anything of any substance. It's pretty like bro talk. Like, it's pretty much just like it's what it is. He's talking like a bro. Like, he's just saying stuff to sound tough and sound confident. And maybe he is confident, but he's not. I'm not buying any of the crap he's saying. I mean, I'm watching all of it, so I'm hearing him contradict himself in his own in what he's talking about. So, John's carrying this thing. And Valentina, it's kind of hard. There's the language barrier. She's a very serious person. She doesn't joke around a lot. Caitlin's doing a good job trying to, sell it, but she's also just kind of like, I'm happy to be here kind of thing. Like, it's kind of like, she's like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to fight, and if I win, that's going to be awesome. I'm going to be champion. But she's also like, but, I'm the underdog. I don't really have anything to lose, so I'm just happy to be here. And so she's not really selling anything. There's no real selling point. She's not convincing me that she's got what it takes to take Valentina out. I mean, just saying like, oh yeah, we see some weaknesses and we plan on capitalizing on those, but we can't talk about them because that gives away our game plan. Those, like, saying that is just, it's weak. Like, we know that that's not true. Like, that your game plan your game plan is to depend on their one weakness. The one thing that you see in the video is what's going to everything hinges on that. And how many times have we heard that? And then just no, especially with John, like, no one's ever been close. And Valentina, no one's ever been close when she went down to this weight division. Like, it's just not, I'm just not buying anything that they're selling. So it's like all on John. And John has a very strange personality. And so it's a hard card to sell. There's no one else helping them out on the card. There's no other fights that I'm excited about. I'm going to spend the $60 to get the pay-per-view because it's my job to pay attention to what's going on in MMA. It's my job to talk about what's going on in MMA. So I'm going to do it, but I'm not excited about it. And I hope that I just get surprised by so many fights. And next time I come on here and talk, I'm going to be like, I was wrong about this. I was wrong about everything. I was wrong about the entire card. Everything was awesome. Everyone was great. I hope that's what it is. I want to be proven wrong. I just don't think I will be. But I'll tell you what I am excited about. Steelfist Rectify, February 21st. That's what I am excited about. I love local fights. I love local fighters. If you aren't into your local scene, if you're watching this outside of Utah and you aren't into your local scene, you need to get into your local scene. Local fighters is where it's at. First of all, finish after finish after finish after finish. That's just what we do. There's rarely decisions. There's usually a finish, a submission, a knockout, a clean knockout, a beautiful knockout. Like it's for excitement, there's nothing better than a local card. And then when it comes to actually the Utah, no one better than Steelfist. Our matchmaking is leaps and bounds above any other organization. We put together good fights. We do. There's just no question about it. We put together the best fighters, and we make for great fights. There's a fight. There's one of the fights that I'm super excited about on this card is the Hayden Brown Craig Grove fight. Craig, a lot of people don't know about him. We all know about Hayden. Okay, everybody in Steelfist, everybody that's been out to a show, they've probably seen Hayden fight. They know he's a good wrestler and he loves to throw his hands. He throws high combinations. He throws multiple shots. In an exchange. He's not afraid to like plant his feet and bang, or he's going to move forward. He's not afraid to dart across the entire cage to throw a 5-punch, 6-punch combo followed with a kick. Like he brings it. He brings it every single time. He hits hard. He's fast. He's going down in weight, and so we're going to see if he may be lightning fast at this point. And so we all know about that. We all know about Hayden. That's why we love him. That's why we bring him back time and time again. He's a killer. A lot of people don't know about Craig. Now, Craig, we've only seen him fight once for Steelfist, and I was super impressed. Even though he lost the fight, he got clipped, and that happens to anybody, any given night, any day. That happens. But up until that point, he was absolutely dominating the fight. And he was fighting Carson Hardman, who ran through his division for a while, was a longtime champ, was fighting for us all the time. And Craig was putting it on him. He had Carson up against the cage, shelled up. And then, Carson was able to throw something and catch him. But up until that point, Craig looked clean. His hands were fast, lightning fast. He was throwing high combination shots. And so this fight between Hayden and Craig is makings for fight of the night. Is absolutely probably my pick for fight of the night. Just as far as I think they're both going to stick in it for a while. I think it's going to go more than one round, and I think it's just going to be straight up fisticuffs the entire time. There's going to be blood. There's going to be violence. There's going to be everything that you want in a fight. So this is my this is my pick for fight of the night. I'm gonna go as far as to say that right now, that I think this is the fight. I think this is the fight of the night. But that's kind of tough because there's a lot of other really, really good fights on this card. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this card. Sometimes I feel like there's, even though we put on a card every month, we just put on a card last month. I feel like it's too long before we get these cards. I would rather wait, and put together good matches, because the model the UFC is doing right now is not working for me. They've got some garbage cards. They had a card last week that I didn't even watch, and it's part of my job, but I just didn't even watch it because there was nothing on it that interests me. But Rectify, Steelfist Rectify, man, this is going to be a bomb. This is going to be a card. This is going to be a good fight. So, you know what you need to do. You need to go to steelfistfight.com and buy your tickets. Or if you know any fighters on the card, you need to go buy your tickets. Do not miss this card. Do not miss this card. Do not be that dumb to miss this card. Look at the card. Look at all the fighters on the card. You know almost all the names. You've seen every single one of these people fight, and you've been excited for every single one of these fights. There hasn't been a bad fighter in all of these matchups. You've seen one of these fighters fight, and you were excited, because we don't put on bad fights. We don't put on boring fights. We don't put on slow fights. We put on good fights, good matchups. So, like I said, go to steelfistfight.com and get your tickets. Go to Steelfist Fight on Instagram and follow us on there. Listen to all our announcements, when the fights, where the fights are going to be, who's fighting. Go to Steelfist Fight Night on Facebook. Become part of our community. Talk with us. If you're a fighter, get yourself a fight. That's where you can get a hold of us, is on the Facebook page. And you know where to find this podcast. It's where you're watching it right now. It's the Undefeated by Choice podcast. These little solo ones are only going to be on Instagram, or only going to be on YouTube. So you won't find it on iTunes or anything like that. Only the interviews I do with the fighters will be on iTunes. But I plan on doing more of these. Of course, we're always looking for sponsors. Anybody who wants to sponsor the Undefeated by Choice podcast and get yourself a shout out multiple times a month to a good amount of listeners, I would say. Go ahead, get a hold of me, reach me, you know where to find me. But other than that, I look forward to seeing you guys on February 21st, 2 weeks away. Do not miss out on this card. Get your tickets now. Everybody, be good to yourself. Be good to each other. I love you.